Anita Ross here, author, speaker, and life coach, bringing you this week's workshop entitled The Power of Your Choices. And we're going to take a look at what affects our choices. Where are we choosing from? What underlying beliefs are guiding those choices? And we're also going to take a look at how when our choices are steeped or rooted in self-love, how that can catapult us right into the life of our dreams. A life filled with everything that you truly, truly desire, everything that you truly want. Whether it be a healthy, thriving, intimate relationship, whether it be the dream job where you're passionate about what you do and you make good money, whether it's amazing friendships, a healthy family life, a healthy body, right? But the life of your dreams, everything that it is you really want, everything amazing. Our choices are what get us there. Sound good? So let's talk about how all of this works, okay? And the first thing I want to share is that our choices are a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. Our choices are a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. Okay? So there are people, experiences, and things that influence on a regular basis how we feel about ourselves. People will share their opinions about us, people who will treat us a certain way, maybe it's negative, people who don't even realize that they're mistreating us. All of the things that have to do with people and how they affect us will affect our feelings, okay? And then things like social media or media, what we should look like, how much money we should have, what beauty is, what success is, those things can impact us. And then as far as experiences, it's like things that have happened, perhaps that are traumatic, loss of a loved one, divorce, abuse, you name it, especially if it's unhealed, it affects how we feel about ourselves. And typically in a negative way, right? And depending on how long we've been allowing these feelings about ourselves to stew, if you will, to stick around, to stay in our minds, it will start to affect our beliefs. And therein lies a problem, because if we don't feel good about ourselves and then it affects us to not believe good things about ourselves, right? Then we will make choices that don't serve us, that are not that life of our dreams, the things that we truly desire, okay? So in a nutshell, when we feel good about ourselves, we make choices that align with our true desires. And our true desires are defined as a person, experience, or thing that you bring into your life experience because it aligns with your authentic self, with your true self. Okay, so let me say that again. When we feel good about ourselves, we bring into our lives our true desires. That's people, experiences, or things that we draw into our life because it aligns with our true nature, our authentic selves. Okay? Now that's the good stuff, right? If we know that we are worthy of a great job, guess what? We're going to select a great job. If we know that we are worthy of a healthy relationship, if we believe that, if we feel that, then guess what? We're going to tend to have a healthy relationship. The issue lies when we don't feel good about ourselves. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, we tend to draw into our lives our perceived needs. So when we feel good about ourselves, we're drawing into our lives those true desires, that which we really, really want. And then when we feel bad about ourselves, we're drawing into our lives perceived needs. Perceived needs are people, experiences, or things that we bring into our life because we believe that we need them, when in actuality, we don't. Okay? What does that look like? That looks like, I'm going to stay in this relationship because I really need a companion. What's the truth? That if it's an unhealthy relationship, you can have a companion somewhere else. The truth is, you can have a companion somewhere else. But because we feel badly about ourselves, we might stay in this unhealthy relationship. Okay? A perceived need might be staying on the job because this is the only way I can make this kind of money. But the truth is it the only way? But if our beliefs are really strong and we don't realize that they're rooted in perhaps some incorrect information that's been influenced by outside entities, like those people's opinions and those unhealed experiences or social media and all the ways that we get affected, if we don't undo that erroneous belief, how I call it, then we'll continue to make choices that aren't good, that don't serve us. Okay? So, true desires, those people, experiences, things that we really, really want in our life, supplement our life. They add to our life. They are meant to bring even greater things into our lives, but we already know we're good. We're great as we are. Okay? So true desires supplement your life, and perceived needs seek to kind of fit in and fill some gaps, how I say. Okay? And what is this gap? The gap is what I call a break in self-love that is caused by unfavorable set of feelings or a feeling about yourself. Okay? Let me say that again. Gaps are a break in self-love that are caused by an unfavorable set of feelings or a feeling about yourself. Okay? And I make the distinction of it being a break in self-love because I want to be sure that you understand I don't believe there are any broken people. Sometimes, depending on how much we've been through and how many times we've heard we're not enough or we're not good or we did this bad or you made that mistake, sometimes we feel like we're broken. But the truth is that there's somewhere in there a break in self-love. Okay, there's somewhere in you that doesn't believe you are perfect, whole, and complete just as you are. But in case I haven't said it recently, it's my favorite thing to say. The truth is, you are perfect, whole, and complete just as you are. Okay? You do have all of the inner workings within you to really, really achieve the life of your dreams, to choose those things that are going to get you what you really, really desire, or choose those paths that are going to get you to what it is you truly, truly desire. But let me kind of circle back before we kind of get deeper into this idea of like your perfection and your amazingness, because I know that sometimes that can be hard to believe depending on, how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, and how deeply rooted you might have some beliefs. So let me kind of go down this idea of the gaps, which are the breaks in self-love, so that you can understand how it might be showing up in your life through your choices. Okay? So when we have a break in self-love, again, no broken people here, okay? We choose those perceived needs, right? And those perceived needs, like the people or the things that we think we need, fill these gaps, these voids. Have you ever heard of that? Like you're filling a void by being with that person, or you're filling a void by keeping that toxic friendship. It's because we believe that we need it. We believe that it's going to make us more lovable or more valuable or more this, whatever, you insert the word. But that's just because we have this erroneous belief deeply rooted within us that says we're not enough, or we're not perfect, whole, and complete, we're not worthy of our dreams. And so when we operate with these gaps, these breaks in self-love, we tend to fill them, if you will, with unhealthy things. We tend to choose the unhealthy relationship. And let me just talk a little bit about unhealthy relationship. It can range. It can range from a subpar relationship where you don't really feel happy in there, or you don't really feel like you can truly be yourself, all the way to abuse, an abusive relationship. So unhealthy can look a lot of different ways. Some are more painful than others, obviously, in an abusive relationship. But we do tend to stay into them in them when we're operating with these gaps, with these breaks in self-love. Somewhere in you, you're saying, I'm not worthy of better. Okay? But that's not the only way. We also fill gaps by overeating or undereating, right? We fill gaps by overspending. Ever rack up those credit cards or spend money you didn't really have? Money that was allocated for something else because we wanted to feel good about ourselves, at least in the moment. We fill gaps with substances, right? So different addictions, whether that be on drugs, alcohol, sex, but different addictions, right? We fill those gaps with. Unfulfilling careers. You ever hear of a workaholic? Sometimes people are workaholics because they are filling a gap. They feel like, well, if I am successful at this, I'm successful at this, then I'm great. But the truth is, might be in shambles in other areas, okay? So when we see that we're making these kinds of choices, it's a red flag. When we see that we are making these choices to fill these gaps, or how they are showing up in our lives, whether it be unhealthy relationships, feeling miserable on the job, overspending, overeating, all it is a red flag to say, okay, there might be some break in this process of self-love going on here for me. And let me just remind you, self-love is a process. It is a process of knowing who you are at any given moment in time, loving who you are no matter what you're working on, no matter what are some truths about yourself, no matter what you've been through in the past, no matter what other people might think of you, right? And then the third piece of that process of self-love is expressing yourself, being who you know yourself to be in all areas of your life, your relationship, your family, with your parents, with your children, on the job, in your education, at your church, in your spirituality, anywhere, expressing who you truly are. So when we're talking about a break in self-love, these gaps that we're actually filling this void of not knowing, loving, or expressing yourself in some form or fashion. Okay? So what happens when we get that red flag? That simply gives us information. Operating with a gap here. There's some break in self-love. Let me reset. Because the truth is, whenever we operate with these gaps, we will pay prices. We will pay prices. Being miserable on a job is the price you will pay with an unfulfilling job, or a job that doesn't pay you your worth. Being in an unhealthy relationship, paying prices, right? Especially if it's abusive. It's even harder of a price to endure. When we overeat or we undereat, we're paying prices. When we seek substances, when we have addictions, we're paying prices. So when we get those red flags and we can finally see them, because that's the other thing. People will try to tell us, girl or man, let me just tell you, you are in this unhealthy relationship and I can see it, but then you're in it and you are not ready. So you can't see it. So we've heard it 1,000 times, right? Heard it so many times, but we're not ready. But when we finally see that red flag, that gives us the opportunity to reset. And sometimes it's going to take taking it sometimes it's going to take us to do some inner work. Well, why is it that I believe this about myself? If I'm in an unhealthy relationship, what would give me the belief that this is all I'm worth? If I'm in an unhealthy or toxic environment on the job, or I'm not paid enough and I can barely make ends meet, what is making me believe that that's all I'm worth? Sometimes it will take some deep inner work. Yeah? And the deep inner work is usually unwrapping some erroneous beliefs, some beliefs that are completely in error. Okay? So if we take a look at perhaps the way our parents treated us when we were younger, or an early relationship that we had when we were younger, that they didn't treat us well, when we have unhealed stuff, when we've, been told we're not good looking, we're too this, too that, we don't look good, our body is a mess, all the things that we get told, it affects us. We get to undo that. We get to unprogram that. I can't tell you how many times I work with people, all different ages, all different age ranges, and they're like, I'm really struggling with unraveling this and reprogramming myself. I just can't, And I'm like, well, you've been thinking this way for many years, especially if we started getting that information when we were young. Okay? So give yourself some patience and seek to do the inner work that will have you look at, where did this erroneous belief come from? Where did it start? And then address that. Okay? And that can look like seeking support. That can look like talking to a good friend, a trusted friend. It can look a lot of different ways to do this work, to do that inner work. Yeah? So all that to say that the idea is to get closer and closer to understanding your perfect, whole, and complete just as you are. I have to make an adjustment here because my battery's about to die. So there we go. Still here. So all that to say that the idea is to disconnect some of these erroneous beliefs, to understand and get back to this idea that you are worthy of the life of your dreams just as you are. Even if you've been through some things, even if certain people don't believe that, and all the things that we grow through in this life. Okay? So, I've said this before as well. If you have your doubts, understand that newborn babies are perfect, just as they are. I know if you've been around when you get it, and you were that newborn baby once before. Okay? So if you ever forget, just remember that that's the case. Okay? So I say all this to say that when we realize and we get the red flags and we finally see, making this choice that's not good for me, and then you realize you want to get out of it, in order to really get out of it and break out of it once and for all, it's going to require you to do a little bit of inner work to understand, well, where did this come from? Why did I stay in this unhealthy relationship for so long? So that you don't go back into a different one, okay? Or you don't go to another toxic job. You want to go for that end game, which is the life of your dreams, the ultimate, okay? And you're worth it. So the next piece about our choices is that we want to take a look at choices from the empowered point of view, okay? So if we take a look at choices from the empowered point of view, for example, I chose into that job that didn't serve me, that wasn't super good for me. Or I chose into that intimate relationship that was unhealthy. Now, let me just give a caveat on the unhealthy relationships. When you recognize that you chose into it, that does not mean that anything that happened in exchange with each other that was unhealthy and wrong that happened to you, that doesn't mean that you're saying it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're saying it's your fault. It means that you can just see how, oh, I chose into that relationship each day that I was in it. And when we can see that, guess what? When we can own that choice, we can unchoose it. And that's what I mean by the empowering point of view. When we take ownership for our choices, oh, I did overeat that day, then what can you choose next? Not to overeat. You can choose something that aligns with you and just do some normal paced eating or some healthy eating, however you define that. Okay? So I can recognize the red flag, how I've chosen into it, and then I can choose differently. Yeah? The empowering point of view of choice is also that we're choosing because we truly want something. We truly want to achieve the healthy relationship. We truly want to choose into a wonderful job. We want to choose into parenting our children well and choose into getting along with our parents, if that's even a possibility, if they're still on the earth or if they're still in your life. And for no other reason than it's what you truly desire. Isn't that powerful? It's such a different paradigm. When I first met my husband, I used to tell him when we first met and we were dating, I used to tell him, love me or leave me alone because I am who I am. I'm going to be who I am. Now, obviously, I had done some really good self-love work to the point where I felt confident in who I was and I loved myself enough to know that if anybody came into my life, they were going to come into my life to truly supplement my life. Okay? And I want to give this example because I think it demonstrates a lot of what we were talking about with the gaps. When someone comes into our lives and you experience yourself as perfect, whole, and complete, then you want to draw, let's say that's this fist here. If you want to draw into your life someone else who's perfect, whole, and complete, then you come together and you're super duper powerful together and happy and thriving and having that great relationship. And when you come apart, guess what? You're still standing strong. You're going to have your emotions if you have a breakup from somebody you really liked, of course, or loved. But you're still standing strong. But when two people come and they have these gaps, these breaks in self-love, and they come together, then they tend to come together and fill those gaps. And then they hold each other up because they believe that they need each other. And then when they come apart, take a look at it. They're still not all the way feeling whole and perfect and complete. Okay? So when I met my husband, I was like, well, love me or leave me because I love myself, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, well, I'll love you. And we've been married like 13 years now. But I went into the relationship for no other reason except that I wanted to be in the relationship with him. I wasn't obligated to do it. I didn't feel like I should do it because society says, well, you should get married. Because certainly I met him at 31 and had children all the way through my 30s, up to 38. And society says, oh, you're supposed to have your children by this age and you're supposed to get married by this age and da-da-da-da-da. I didn't marry him because I feel like I needed him. I didn't engage in the relationship because I felt like it was my duty to do it. It was simply because I wanted to be in that relationship. And that's how it works. We want to choose from a place that is empowering, that we are inspired by, and that we are going to truly add some greatness and deliciousness, if you will, to our lives. Okay? And it's the same thing. I think I use the relationship incident and I use the career example quite a bit here, but it's the same thing in all areas of your life. You want to be able to take a look at the different areas, whether it be your friendships, because that's another one. I think people sleep on our friendships sometimes, but some of them can be toxic. You ever have a friend that you're like, why when I'm around her, she's always talking negative? And you're a real positive person? It's time to take inventory. When you see these red flags, if you will, you want to take a look at, well, why am I choosing into an unhealthy friendship? Same thing with education. Sometimes we go for education because we feel like it's esteemed. We feel like, oh, well, if I get, my high school diploma, if I get my college degree, and if I get my master's degree, my PhD, and all of those things, then I'll be successful, because that's what society says. But the truth is, that's not necessarily true. It can be a great addition to your life if it's something you really want to do. But if it's not something you really want to do, it's going to be really hard to succeed in school. Right? So your choices. I've seen people choose into PhD programs and they're miserable. Come out, they're a doctor and they're still miserable. Because it might not even be in the area that they want to be working in. Both my degrees are in engineering. I have a Bachelor of Engineering and a Master of Engineering. Did I enjoy engineering? Yes, I enjoyed engineering. But was it like my dream job? No. And it wasn't till I did some rewiring of how I had it. Because, see, when I was younger, my parents felt it was a very esteemed job to be an engineer. And I wanted to please them. And I wanted to, be able for them to brag about me with the family. I think I was the first one to graduate from college of all my cousins. And in such a hard area of engineering, they were bragging about me. And it was years before I took a look at, gosh, I'm so miserable on the job. I had an office job. I was even traveling. Now, the traveling was fun because I worked for a company that had me traveling throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. Beautiful. Don't regret that part. But the engineering piece, at some point, I was like, this is not what I'm meant to do. Red flag. If I'm feeling miserable, that's a red flag. Then I took a look at what is it that I really, really want to do. I took a look at my life story and decided I'm meant to support people in learning how to love themselves. And thank God I'm doing it. I have personally helped save people's lives in the work that I do. I'm grateful for that. But had I not listened to my voice of like, that's a red flag. When you're miserable and making people miserable on the job, it's a red flag. When you go with your friends and someone's taking down your energy every time, that's a red flag. Right? In your health, if you're overeating or if you find yourself going through a whole day and you're undereating, red flag. And so ultimately it means that you get to do some inner work and take a look at where is it that my feelings about myself got so deep that it affected my belief system. And 9.9 times out of 10, when we're operating from those gaps, those breaks in self-love, it comes from a feeling of not feeling worthy. It comes from a feeling of not feeling like you're enough. And it comes from a feeling, usually, of some unhealed stuff, or any combination of those three. Okay? So all it means is it is an opportunity for you to deprogram, or like I said earlier, unprogram. I think it should be deprogram. My bad. But deprogram how you have it so that you can take away the erroneous thoughts that affected this belief system and replace it with this idea that you are perfect, whole, and complete as you are. And it might take some healing. It might take some support, some reaching out, and it will be quite liberating. And when you operate from that place of I am worthy, I know, love, and express myself fully no matter what, you will start seeing your choices align with that which you truly desire. True desires being the people, experiences, or things you want to draw into your life because they align with who you truly are. Isn't that powerful? Thank you so much for watching today.